Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Catherine Mattice here with Civility Partners. I am the founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We are a corporate consultant company focused on building positive and respectful work environments. And I always have guests related to that mission that we have. So today I'm super excited to have Cristin Smith with me. Cristin is a friend of mine, and I'm lucky enough to get to go to her spa every now and again. So Cristin's a holistic healthcare entrepreneur. She's a seven-figure female founder and has had several businesses, and she's super young. So she's also one of my idols just as a business person. And her spa, Saffron and Sage, has been named number 22 of San Diego's Cristin was named number 22 of San Diego's most influential leaders by Modern Luxury magazine. Saffron and Sage has won a ton of awards for their acupuncture, their holistic health club. She's a top 10 spa in San Diego by Condé Nast Traveler magazine. And Saffron and Sage has corporate clients, including Google, Lululemon, and lots of smaller companies as well. And so Cristin and I are going to talk today about holistic health and how this is a great way for employers to, show their employees that they care about their health. So with all of that, thank you, Cristin, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Of course. So tell us first, what does Saffron and Sage do? Talk to us about holistic health and just why all of that is important.
Yeah. So Saffron and Sage exists to inspire leaders in regaining their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And we want to see people live their fullest life. We want people see individuals step into freedom. And for us, wellness is really equivalent with wholeness, right? Achieving that homeostasis, that balance state, but also reaching optimal performance. And this is obviously something that we spend a lot of time talking to HR directors and chief culture officers about is how do we do this both personally, but also professionally, and what is our role for bringing workplace wellness to our employees and to our teams. And specifically at Saffron and Sage, we specialize in preventative and integrative medicine. And we've spent the last 4 years, we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary in September. So we spent the last 4 years redesigning and reshaping healthcare, and really there was a hole in the marketplace. I had a major health crisis about 10 years ago. I was coming from the corporate world in insurance and financial services, and had a major health crisis. And doctors found 4 tumors rapidly growing in my neck and my thyroid. Wow. And it wiped me out. I was unable to show up. I was unable to work anymore. And that led to an extended season of trying to identify the root cause of my illness as well as address the symptoms. And I think we can all relate, right? Whether it's burnout from the last 2 years of the pandemic, to chronic conditions from digestive disorders, endocrine disorders, stress and sleep. We're all dealing with a range of these things. And the question is, how do we identify, bio-individualistically, right, what we need? And then how do we create healthier environments, which is why I love what you do, right? Because you spend so much time talking about creating healthy environments in the workplace. Yeah. And I think that's why we connect, right? Is looking at how we build healthy teams and cultures and figuring out how do we do more than just provide health insurance and provide sick days? How do we actually see those sick days go down by implementing wellness days and different activities? And so for us, we pulled together a team of practitioners, an interdisciplinary team from medical doctors to naturopathic doctors, doctors of Chinese medicine, acupuncturists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychotherapists, coaches, spiritual directors, energy practitioners, breathwork instructors, personal trainers, yoga instructors, and the list goes on. The whole team. And our team works with our clients both individually as well as collectively, doing virtual events, in-person experiences, and then we do a lot of creative things in wellness experiences with like shipping wellness boxes, so you can actually start to use these products from the comfort of your home and from the comfort of your desk, and seeing those really elevate and enhance both your personal well-being and then your professional contribution to the company.
Yeah, and that's one thing that makes you so amazing is you really do it all, including making your own products. I use your face. There's 5 steps to this facial regimen that is really amazing. So what would you say to HR leaders or leaders in general who are thinking, well, we do the gym membership, which is, of course, a super popular benefit or value add that employers give. And I actually learned in my last LinkedIn Live that it's the number one given benefit and the least utilized benefit. So it's the number one non-used benefit. So how do we get people to realize like, hey, there's a whole other version of this. It doesn't have to be a gym membership.
Absolutely. Well, I think, if you're like me, I hate going to the gym and I don't have a gym membership. So I think for a lot of us, when we think about working out, we think about more work, more energy that has to be expended. And oftentimes after the end of a really long day, the last thing we want to do is something that is more exhausting, right? Or at least what feels more exhausting to us. And so I think, and the other component to that is, for a long time, when it comes to benefits, we focused on the physicality component of health and well-being. And I think one of the big components that everyone's seeing that we've really neglected and have an opportunity to pivot to is mental health, right? What does it look like to focus on the mental, emotional aspects of health, and how do we do that in fun and exciting ways that people actually want to engage in and participate in? And so, for instance, when we come in and do acupuncture and massage and sound bath, everyone shows up to that, right? When you bring in the massage therapist. And so I think bringing more multi-sensory experiences that allow us to shut down, allow us to rest, and simultaneously allow us to recalibrate and re-energize, and therefore become more clear-minded, more focused, more productive, and simultaneously support our immune system. You were just in with the Entrepreneurs Organization just recently doing a curated breath work and sound bath experience. And I think one of the things both you and the other participants said walking away was just the profound experience and impacts that just 60-minute breathwork component had on your mental state, right? And I think those are the sort of things that we want to serve up on a silver platter that's going to get people to sign up, get people to show up, and then to actually see that translate to the bottom line, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So one thing I wanted to talk about with you today is, some of this holistic health stuff can feel very woo-woo to people like me who, I'm not necessarily, I love the massage, of course, and an acupuncture, but I'm not like the breath work and some of these things that they just feel woo-woo to me. I don't know how else to describe it. And so I was a non-believer when we started that breath work that we did. And holy moly, by the end, and like you said, the other participant that was with us, we were both just in shock. I sat up and was like, I am a believer. I am so much more clear. I felt like I had been on this crazy journey over 60 minutes and just it opened up my body and my mind. So I think the bottom line is you can give people a gym membership to try to entice them to apply to work for your company. But we know they're probably not going to use it versus something like what you're offering, where it's actually having an impact on their productivity and effectiveness at work. That's just a different level. Why not give a benefit that's not only good for the employee, but actually good for the organization as well?
Absolutely. How do we create win-win strategies, right?
Yeah.
And I think you underscore something really important, which is the woo-woo, right? And I think this is why we've seen the realm of complementary medicine or alternative care as being pushed to the side, right? And not taken seriously, both by professionals and executives as well as mainstream healthcare, right? And so, and that was my experience, right? When I started delving into this realm personally, I was like, are they going to put a hex on me? It was like, I was in 2 contrasting environments in a very clinical hospital-like setting, right? Yeah. That was anxiety provoking. or it was in like an environment that looks like, you know, it was right out of the 80s, tie-dye and crystals, and they're gonna put a hex on me, you know, what's happening? And so for me, in constructing Saffron and Sage, it was really, really important that every modality we brought into this space was supported by science and evidence-based research. And so, you know, the breath work, the energy work, like we have white papers on this. We can actually support what's happening at a scientific level, what's happening at a cellular level when you're doing these things. And that's why I think it's really fascinating to be bringing in our doctors into these educational environments, as well as facilitating these sessions. And so I think that brings more credibility to the experiences and the different modalities. But I think we as professionals, we need to hear that, right? We need to hear what is actually happening as I'm doing this breath work, or if we're in a sound bath, right? Like vibrational medicine, right? That sounds wonky. So let's dive deep and really pull out what's happening at a scientific level. And I love talking about the science. And I think that's why we're seeing so much receptivity with our corporate clients, both you know, small boutique companies here in San Diego to enterprise companies that are both you know, local and global, and they're seeing that translate to their staff, and obviously, like you said, a lot of creative marketing and communication to kind of get them in until you can really experience it, because some of those things like breath work, you don't really know what to expect. You get in and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually bought some breathwork sessions for some friends of mine. I'm like, I need to, because I know that they would all enjoy it too. So tell us about some of the case studies with some of your corporate clients. I know you'd mentioned, you know, one person actually gives sessions when people hit their KPIs at work. And so talk to us about how your corporate clients are leaning on Saffron and Sage.
Yes. One of my favorite corporate clients of ours is Enclave. They're actually a San Diego-based food company. They actually just bought a 20-acre farm here in San Diego, where they're growing all their food to service their restaurants and their catering. And they have, you know, all of their chefs and their cooks and their nutritionists who are in the kitchen slaving away, preparing all of these local organic meals, which of course we partner and deliver to our clients here local in San Diego. But you know, obviously they're standing and working in a kitchen all day. And so there's a lot of ergonomic issues, a lot of stress physically, and then just the pace of their working environment. And so they have KPIs that they have to hit. And they send in about 5 employees a week who are hitting different KPIs and different markers. So for them, it's an incentive-based system. And they get one session. And so whether they're doing a breathwork session or massage or acupuncture, they can even use that to do a nutritional therapy session and walk out with their own customized seasonal nutritional plan that the doctor creates for them, which is exciting. So they're seeing a ton of success. One of our other corporate clients, Crow PR, they have about a 30-person staff. And they have their MVP of the month gets a session every month, and then they do quarterly team building sessions. And so then everyone comes together as a team to do different things. And pre-pandemic, when they had their physical space, they were actually bringing our acupuncturists into the office and having them do mini sessions to decrease stress and anxiety, increase focus and productivity. And those were a fun twist from the normal massage that people were used to doing in the office. And it actually translated to them being able to go slip right back into work and be productive throughout their day. And then we have larger clients like Google, who their teams are spread out around the country and the globe. And they're doing experiential virtual events, right? So everyone is been thinking, how do we creatively connect our teams when we're all working from home? And so for them, it's these wellness days that they're doing. And so we're shipping boxes to each of the homes for their staff members that are participating in these events. And one thing we did was a food as medicine workshop. And so they got basically the ingredients to create their own herb garden. And one of our doctors and herbalists walked them through the different properties of the herbs and how they could use those in cooking and meal prep to help with things like inflammation and things like that. So experiential, team building, wellness, connecting all the dots. And so there's just lots of fun different activities that we're doing, and hybrid, right? We've had some teams that they're coming in person, or we're going on site to their place or a local hotel or place. And then everyone who's virtually is getting streamed in, and they're getting to participate in like the breath work or the bath or different things. So there's a lot of different dynamics, but everyone is doing it a little bit differently.
I love that. I was going to ask about the virtual thing. So that's great to know that even if you're dispersed, everyone doesn't have to be in San Diego where Saffron and Sage is. You can do things virtually. That's awesome. What are some, like you mentioned the white papers, and I know that HR people often have to sort of make the case, right? And I've even been asked that when I'm talking about culture. We're both in a little bit of a woo-woo space where you can't you can't see or touch the things that we do sometimes. So give us some examples of what's in some of the white papers, like the breath work that we did. I have a personal anecdote that I definitely felt all the things that the instructor said we would feel. My whole body was tingling, and my mind was like on this crazy journey. By the way, we have a comment that everything you've talked about with these activities sounds really amazing. So if you reach out to Cristin, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you more about it. But what does some of the science say about this woo-woo stuff that Saffron and Sid?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is I will absolutely send you guys these white papers, and as well as our statistics around corporate wellness and how the specific offerings that we're bringing in, how they're helping hit those HR metrics and those finance metrics as well, right? So happy to send that if you guys send me an email, and I'll drop in my email here as well. But for instance, as we're talking, just at the core, I think, our bodies are electric, right? When we think about acupuncture, we're working on the electrical system and getting our meridians and these electrical highways basically reconnected, right? And so when we have things like a headache, when we have anxiety, stress, there's a blockage somewhere in our bodies, right? And so what we're looking for is, where is that disturbance? And obviously, if we look at a cellular level, we know that our cells vibrate at a frequency, right? This is why we talk about eating whole, real foods, right? There's a vibrational value, if you will, depending on what you're eating, and then that's coming into your body and sending messages at a cellular level, right? And so as we understand the body's communicating constantly, it's all about messaging. So everything that we're inputting, excuse me, is taking in information, while simultaneously everything we're thinking is taking in information, right? Not only oh my gosh, I've got to hit that deadline by next week. I've got to finish this project by, Q1. That stress and that pressure, that's all sending signals to our brain and to our body, right? There's chemical messaging. And so what we have learned through science is that when those messages are negative, when they're stressful, any of those things, they have an impact, right? And obviously, consistent messaging then leads to disease and illness. And so what we want to do is look at early interventions. When we're getting the headaches, when we can't sleep, when we're experiencing the anxiety, those are the original signals, right? Before we have endocrine disorders, before we have digestive disorders. So when we look at those signals, we have an opportunity to reprogram and reframe. And so by doing things like pausing, taking a couple of deep breaths, that actually is sending different signals and different messages. This is why we spend so much time talking about breath work in a lot of different capacities, because just by certain breath patterns, you're eliminating toxins through the breath, right? So not only is it physically detoxing, but as you said, mentally and emotionally detoxing. And there's the other component of history of traumas that we've all experienced, right? That are in our subconscious. And it doesn't have to be major traumatic moments. It could have been, I was in a car accident years ago. Your body still is holding on to that trauma. So whether we're looking at those historical things that are kind of set in our system and held at a cellular level, how are we clearing those out? And oftentimes we never do it, right? We never take that time. And so that's a more systemic, long-term approach to just doing that deep cleaning, as well as the maintenance, right? Every day. I mean, I walked in today and before we got on this call, I told you I'm having a really challenging day. Stress is up, anxiety is up. So what do I do to reframe and reprogram that's going to switch that messaging? And I think that one of the things that I love talking about is when we're stressed, and most people don't realize this, we go into fight or flight, right? Fight or flight, our primal brain goes into a tiger's chasing me, run. And what happens on a physiological level, if I could say it, is that all your organ function shuts down. All of the blood goes to your limbs in order to run from the tiger, right? That's the messaging, that's the programming. And when that happens, everything else is shut down. So when we live in that constant state, our immune system isn't working, our digestive system isn't working. So as we insert these different practices that we can learn in a group setting and then take home and practice in our everyday lives, both at home and at work, they allow us to shift gears. They allow us to change the messaging and then change our physiology, change our psychology. And that's really what we want to get into, right? Our psychology changes our physiology changes our psychology. And when we can do both at the same time, like breath work, it opens it up.
I love that explanation. I've never heard it quite so clearly explained. And, you know, when I'm doing my coaching with people being accused of toxic behavior, I actually lean very much on that model, fight or flight. And that's the first coaching session is we talk about that and how that toxic behavior is a reaction. It's, you know, they're stressed and they're lashing out, they're fighting. But I like how you said that, where, you know, everything goes to the limbs so we can run from the tiger. And it is so interesting that, well, I think that's why it feels woo-woo, because logically there isn't a tiger and we know that. And so it's easy to discount the stress, but in the end, we have these instinctual reactions that we can't deny. And so you're offering something that really allows people to get out of that and come back out of their reptilian brain, as they call it. And I just love the idea of giving your workforce something that, as you said, cleanses them of deep cleans some of that stuff they carry that probably affects their productivity and their effectiveness and their communication and their relationships. And this is a way to not only do a kind of a fun, interesting team activity, but also it actually does improve what's happening with each of your employees versus let's have a happy hour. You know, it's this is a better option.
Yeah, and the other component of that trauma and that stress is the last 2 years, right? We've been through this pandemic, and not only has it changed home life, it's changed work culture, it's increased stress, and that trauma, right, that we all experience to different degrees, is still lingering under the surface. And so even more so, it's just so vital. I think we're just seeing so much burnout on top of what was already there, right?
Yeah. And you know, what's going to happen is whenever the pandemic is over, we're all going to have to process whatever level of sort of PTSD that we have while still functioning. There's no, you know, it'll be over and we're just supposed to move on, or maybe it won't be over. We'll be able to function, go back to some sort of normal, but it will, we have to process all of the stress that we've been experiencing while also functioning in our day-to-day as we're doing now. And so all the more reason to take care of yourself and your team, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really why we're seeing the Great Resignation, right? People are tapped, and they can't take anything anymore. And so instead of going to HR and having conversations and seeing how do we fix these things, they're just resigning and leaving. And the reality is the grass is never greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Sure, you might get paid more money, but what is the work environment look like? What does the culture look like? Everyone's in that freight environment, right? So
Mhm.
we have an opportunity to retain our people through intervention. And
Yes.
these are just some great strategies for that intervention.
Yeah, I love this. So, Cristin, tell us where we can get a hold of you, and we will make sure that all ends up in the chat. And as you offered, if you want any of these white papers she's got to take to your leader to say, we got to do this, she's happy to send them to you. So how can we get a hold of you?
Yes, well, you can visit us at saffronsageliving.com.
Okay.
You can come down and see us in person in Little Italy here in San Diego. And you can access us through any of our virtual offerings or local and regional offerings as well as we travel to our clients. And I'll add my email in here as well that you guys can contact me. But thank you, Catherine. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for sharing everything that you're offering. And as I mentioned, I'm fairly woo-woo, or I'm not woo-woo, and it felt woo-woo. And now I'm a believer. And I also love that you come from a finance background that's also not too woo-woo. And you've also transformed. So you get it. You get those number-driven CEOs who want the proof. So
we do. We want the proof, and we don't want the woo-woo. We want the sacredness. And I think that's why people call us a spa. Every time I hear spa, we win all these spa awards. And that's really it. How do we have a luxurious spa-like experience that's rooted in data-driven results and evidence-based practices? And that's really what we're about.
That's perfect. I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much, Cristin. And I'll actually be there later today. So maybe I'll see you.
Right.
All right. Thank